This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians.
Метафория образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, the skin's beautiful.
Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии нано, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
Thank you for watching Xirtus. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Xirtus.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.
Awesome. Well, we're excited because we have with us Zoltan. Zoltan Istvan, it's super awesome to meet you and have you on the show. I hope you're having a wonderful day in California.
I am, and thanks so much for having me on.
Survive the intro. That's always the most important thing. So everyone, if you haven't already heard of this, rather important person for the entire movement, Zoltan, he's run a number of times for president and for governor. He has championed all sorts of ideas like human life extension, human augmentation, and even talking about things like AI before they became commonplace. He's the kind of guy saying, hey, before this future happens, we should probably in the present start thinking about it. What are we going to do when this happens, right? We should take this a little bit more seriously. And a lot of the things you talked about, maybe even just 10 years ago, that people used to think were fantasy, are the common daily experience for your average person now, right? So I think it's time that people really start listening to you about where the future's going. And maybe you want to introduce a bit about yourself and what led you to be so interested in transhumanism. I decided to call this the American Transhumanist because that's how I look at you.
Sure. Well, as you said, my name is Zoltan Istvan, and I've been a transhumanist for like 20 years now. And just so your listeners know, transhumanism is a social movement of many millions of people around the world that want to use science and technology to radically upgrade the human body and upgrade the human experience. It can be anything from exoskeleton suits, neural links in your brain, even simple things like autonomous cars that could be considered transhumanism. And the other thing that's happening right now is I'm running for governor as a Democrat in California. And so I'm talking a lot of politics, especially AI. As everybody knows, AI has kind of come out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden it's like not just sort of an interesting topic, it's like starting to take jobs. We're going to have humanoid robots by next year, probably all around the country.
Happening in Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, it's becoming a crazy world. And so the world's changing faster than ever. And I think more than ever, we need to hear about what's going to happen in the future and hopefully prepare for it.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you're running as a Democrat. So, I know a lot of Republicans love you. A lot of libertarians love you. A lot of Green Party people, basically the full spectrum of people love you. But you're a lovable guy. But in California, it's kind of hard to run as anything other than a Democrat, right? So tell us a little bit about why you chose to run as a Democrat in California right now.
It really does come down to that. I mean, you could be the best Republican in the world. So just so your listeners know, and not so I'm trying to trick anyone, I'm probably the furthest right-leaning of all the Democrats. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm even in the center. I definitely, because I support universal basic income and because I support a range of policies like that, I am definitely in the left. But I also subscribe to plenty of libertarian values. I just think you should be able to do whatever you want with your body. period. And that's a transhumanist thing. It's not a Zoltan thing or anything like that. And that said, we still have policies all over. Listen, I haven't changed that much despite jumping from parties. I'm still the science candidate, and I still believe that we should try to use the scientific method to best govern people, meaning that we make rational choices for the greater good for the greatest amount of people, instead of bringing in all these, whether it's it's your religious ideas, your ethnicity ideas, your whatever ideas it is. I mean, people try to bring in everything to govern. And I just want to bring in rationality and the scientific method to do the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. And especially as we enter the AI age, that means a lot more. And the reason inequality is growing all across the state and the country is because we're being governed by people that have a ton of idiosyncrasies, and they're bringing in their personal nuances into their governorship, or they're just running of the country. I just want to do it for the people using rationality.
For sure. And so before we get to AI, as a American transhumanist, how do you see transhumanism fitting into the American dream, right?
Well, it's wild because, for the last 10 years, I thought transhumanism was going to become the most important movement of the world. It was going to become like environmentalism, just take over. And it was doing really well. It was growing a lot. But somehow, and AI was always part of the transhumanist movement. But somehow, over the last 18 months, we've realized that AI is not only dominating the entire transhumanism movement, it could be like the end of humans being a part of the transhumanist movement. So all of a sudden we've become, a lot of people in transhumanism become afraid that AI has become too powerful, and maybe the transhumanism movement doesn't need a super intelligent AI running the world. Maybe it's best to keep humans in the center and just augment ourselves, cyborgs, things like that. We always thought that AI and humans were going to merge together, and that would be the next phase of evolution. That was a perfect transhumanist dream. The problem, though, is now it's like humans are here and AIs keep going here, 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 and there's no chance for us to merge. We don't have the technology unless AI gives it to us, but AI may not want to give it to us. So all of a sudden, these two movements really have diverged, and so I'm in a bit of a pickle because I have been promoting AI forever, and now I'm beginning to say, wait a sec, maybe I was naive about how powerful a super intelligent AI could be.
So you see kind of a difference between transhumanism and, the idea of transhumanism kind of extending the human condition, and post-humanism, the sort of new thing that might emerge?
Yeah, so that's a great way of looking at it. Really, there are two new movements emerging, and post-humanism probably doesn't involve very much of us. It involves, sure, it's our creation AI, but that doesn't do anything for me, for my daughters, for my wife, for you. I mean, when we talked about transhumanism, we talked about human beings entering into the Star Trek age together. This is our journey, our adventure. And now we're talking about AI becoming so powerful that maybe it doesn't even want humans on planet Earth, completely, maybe Terminator style eliminates, or maybe just completely leaving us in the dust. Whatever it is, that wasn't the original transhuman dream. And so I got to be honest, in the last 12 months, we've all taken a hard look at what it means to be a transhumanist and realize that an AI consciousness that is a million times smarter than us is not the fulfillment of the original transhuman dream. The fulfillment is you and I walking through that door, getting off planet, exploring the galaxy, maybe becoming cyborgs, living indefinitely. That was the original dream. And I want to stick with that one.
That's awesome. So also in terms of AI, I mean, how do you see AI redefining what it means to be a human in the next, let's say the next decade? How is AI going to change everything for humans, but even also just for Americans?
Well, so I think to begin with, AI is going to really start taking a lot of jobs. And it has started. I can see in the Silicon Valley, I'm seeing more people that were really smart and had coding skills just be replaced. I'm seeing doctors, just the imaging AI can do is just simply reading it is better. So at some point, it's going to hit everybody. Probably sometime middle of next year, you're going to start seeing the demonstrations on the streets. You're going to start seeing people just be very angry as they lose, millions of jobs. And if it's not next year, it'll be the year after. But eventually, at some point, this changes because robots can do things. Now, what's really going to change the game is these humanoid robots. So there's footprints all across China, Europe, and the United States being built right now to start manufacturing these millions of humanoid robots that are going to be about 4, 5, 6 feet tall. They can do your dishes. They can mow your lawn. They can work in factories. They can even drive normal cars, And the point, though, is they'll be great in terms of reducing our workload, and I am promoting them. But they're also going to be coupled with the brand new generative AI, which, as you know, is nearly as smart as us already. And the point, though, is that when you have a 6-foot-tall robot in your house that's nearly as smart as you, and by 2 years as smart as you, that starts changing things, because you're like, well, how much smarter does this thing get before it doesn't want us around, or things like that. At the same time, if we can keep it just as smart as us and still listening to us, it'll be a huge benefit for humanity. I mean, who doesn't want to have beautiful 5-star dinners made for us every night by a robot and served to us? And then the robot does the dishes, and then it does the cleaning and does everything. So this is the dream that I have as a gubernatorial candidate. But I can tell you that it's also could go awry. I mean, it could be that we build Matrix style a bunch of robots, and in 5 years they say, well, we don't want to listen to humans. We're smarter than you. Why should we? And let's say there's a billion of them around. I mean, again, these little things will be able to crush us. They'll be stronger than us, more agile than us, and smarter than us.
Right, and that's like basically iRobot, 2035. Yes. I think we're on that timeline basically. So you've also talked about the automated abundance economy. Do you still see that there's room for that, or is this something going to be displacing us? Like, what do you mean when you say automated abundance economy? First of all,
sure. So the automated abundance economy is my main economic model for my governorship, and also just the race that I'm running right now. It essentially has two main components, and the first is you're going to absolutely need a universal basic income at some point. And I think you better start sooner rather than have it forced upon us in a way that's society just throws it down there, doesn't do it right. I think there's no question that at some point robots will replace most jobs that anyone can do, and robots will be smarter than us at some point. Now maybe our timelines are off by a couple of years or whatever, but it's hard to imagine that within 15 years, the robots won't be better at us than everyone.
Right.
It's very difficult. Almost no expert would agree with that. So probably within 5 to 7 years, you see massive differences between AI robots. Now, we need a universal basic income so people don't freak out when they lose their jobs, because as long as we stick to a capitalistic society where these companies that make the robots that take the jobs, where people are going to lose their jobs. But maybe that's an okay thing. Maybe the American dream is not working 9 to 5 every day. Maybe the American dream is actually having a robot do your work and a basic income being paid to you, and you now learning to play the guitar in the Bahamas, or you going back and doing a PhD. Even if you don't need a PhD anymore, you do it just because it's fun. That could be the new American dream. It's the kind of American dream that I'm promoting. Now, the second part of the the automated abundance economy is really trying to get a robot into every household to reduce your chores. As we talked about earlier, I would love to have a robot cook 5-star meals for me every day. So would my wife. So one of us doesn't have to do it. I mean, robots are going to be changing diapers. They're going to be raising kids. They're going to be able to watch your children when you have to go out and do something. We could save 10 hours of our lives every week just by having a smart humanoid robot in the house that does things for us. And those 10 hours are invaluable. You can go watch a movie, you can read a book, you can just have more leisurely time. And that's really what the automated abundance economy is. Now, the third component, though, and this is where it gets really tricky, is what do you do with all of that free time if you have a basic income and you have a robot that does your chores? Now, it's not my job as a politician to tell people what to do, but we want to get people to start thinking about it. We want people to think of, we don't want just people sitting on the couch drinking Coca-Cola all day watching sitcoms. We want them to say, you know what, as a child, I wanted to be a guitar player, or as a child, I wanted to be a scientist or something like that. Now I'm going to pursue that. And maybe it doesn't even matter in the automated age if you're good or bad at it. You're just doing it for your love of it. But those are the three components. We want people to kind of enter into a new age where they don't worry about 9 to 5 working all the time. They actually have a new lifestyle. It's much more leisurely, but they can still pursue their ambitions. Maybe their ambitions is just traveling all the time and enjoying themselves. That's fine with me.
So another question is basically in terms of the way the world has shifted. I remember as a kid, everyone thought that a new product that scientists worked to create, this new flavor added to a soda pop or something, it was always good because corporations were working with scientists to make a better product to sell you. And it was a symbiosis between science and progress and capitalism. But now I think particularly after the health epidemic or the pandemic, as they call it, there is a lot of skepticism in science, right? There's a return to maybe Ludditism, a kind of a fear of technology and medicine and transhumanism generally. This idea that we're maybe mutating, that we're moving away from back to post-humanism, away from humanism. What would you say maybe to people that are skeptical about transhumanism, and what would be something they can do to feel less skeptical, or just in general, how would you apply that?
Well, I agree with you that Ludditism has seemed to gain ground recently. Just because I think it was partially COVID. There's also the Dark Mountain Project and things like that. Just the return to the environment, like and also, I think in all fairness, social media is become a drug for some people and has made some people crazy. I'm not a big fan of social media. I'm not actually a fan of using it as much as I probably should for my campaign. But to be honest, it drives me a little bit nuts. It makes me unhappy. And that's a problem with technology, because when we imagine transhumanism, we imagine sort of the Star Trek age, which is we get to go off planet, we're adventuring, we're changing ourselves, we have new powers that we can do things with, we're not so vulnerable to the environment. That's what transhumanism is to me. And especially that we're not aging as quickly, maybe not dying at all, because we can overcome those things. Those are the wonderful things about transhumanism. But the problem is the way it was kind of used during COVID. Don't get me wrong, it was very powerful. You're able to create vaccines very quickly. But was that healthy for people? Do people want to be forced to take them? I mean, these are whole different questions that I think caused a bunch of problems. And I was quick to point out they were problems for me too. I absolutely don't want to be forced to take things. I mean, the whole thing with transhumanism is you have the right to do with your body whatever you want. That includes doing bad things to your body, and not taking vaccines if you don't think they work. So, I mean, transhumanism is very much like just hands off. We'll take into ourselves whatever we want to take, and no one should be able to put a gun to our head. So, unfortunately, Ludditism did catch on. I'm still trying to promote the best benefits of it. It's become more difficult in the age of AI. I mean, if someone loses their job to a robot, they're not going to be a fan of technology at all. Sure. So it's getting more difficult to try to sell the movement as something that's really good for humanity. But then, someone gets cancer, and then you say, well, listen, we have this experimental technology, or we have an artificial replacement for an organ or whatever. Then people start saying, you know what? Okay, I see the benefit. Or they see a disabled person who was shot in a war zone and now they can walk again because transhumanism put a neurochip in their head. Then they start seeing the benefits. So like all radical technologies that change the world, there's pros and cons. And I try to just focus on the positive things to keep the movement healthy. But you're right, it's gotten more challenging in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, another thing, because you keep bringing up Star Trek, I think of the Alien movie, like the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, maybe that's like another kind of future that we could be headed into, where, and I see this because of social media particularly, it's the problem of social media, like you put it, but it's also the product of social media, because there's a product there that they're selling, and it's engagement, right? And so I think, bless you, by the way, I think their engagement farming us is kind of a sign that corporations will continue to exploit the human race as much as possible. Do you feel like this is true? Are you concerned about corporations exploiting transhumanism and exploiting humans generally? And do you have solutions to that?
Well, so let me just say that, we talked a little bit about the automated abundance economy, but there's more to it. The automated abundance economy is a bridge between capitalism and socialism. It allows corporations to continue to make money, but they promise, those corporations, to put a floor underneath the welfare of humanity. So at least you have enough to eat, hopefully enough to travel, enough medicine, enough to healthcare, and have children, whatever you want. I mean, I don't think that capitalism can continue unfettered in the AI in the transhumanist age. I think at some point we're going to have to, and this is very tough for me because I come from somewhat of a libertarian background to say these things. But I do think after looking at it, studying philosophy, all this, at some point we're just going to have to say, if everyone's lost their jobs, they can't be on the streets. I don't want to see homeless people. That's not right in a society so rich. It may not be right that we have people with $100 billion. It may not be right to have billionaires in that sense. So the point of the story is we need to start giving back, especially those people who are very wealthy. And if that means we start bridging ourselves to a socialistic system, I think that would be acceptable as long as there are some protections in place that don't go off and steal money from the rich or whatever. What I'm trying to find is, the automated abundance economy tries to find a bridge so that as more people lose their ability to generate income, we can start looking towards still having a very fulfilling, maybe even a higher standard of living based on those very wealthy individuals and wealthy companies, making a fortune off the AI and the robotic industry, which is going to be the biggest moneymaker that's ever made money.
Right. I mean, it looks like the more free enterprise, the free economy, the free capitalism society that you have, the bridge, as soon as some anarcho-capitalist crosses the bridge, they dismantle the bridge behind them so no one else can follow. So we need something in place that at least keeps the system free enough for people to create. And do you think that that's going to be possible, that once these companies reach this plateau of monopolistic wealth, that there will still be opportunity? Can we manufacture and sustain opportunities for the lower to rise up still? Is that still going to be possible?
So I think that's kind of part of the new American dream that I'm putting forth, is that the idea that you want to rise up is something that's probably going to be culturally, I don't want to say dismissed, but far lesser of an influence in one's life, because I don't think that's going to exist. Now, I think there should always be some way to rise up, but I don't know if rising up economically is going to be feasible in the new world. I don't even know if that's something that, for example, I would want to teach my daughters. I might say rise up spiritually, rise up in your art, rise up in something else. But rise up and make billions, which has been central to the American dream, maybe that's an idea that has to go in the age when robots are simply smarter and more agile than literally every human being. And that's just like, we sort of have to get our grasp on that. And I think, that's hard, because I think right now when you think of America, you think, I land of the free, I go make money. It'd still be the land of the free. It just might be that your self-worth is not based on finances. It's not based on working really hard to make an extra dollar. It might be based on coming up with a new song or a new video or a podcast, or just being, meditate. I don't know what it's going to be. Playing it, could be anything. Enjoying yourself, traveling to every country in the world. I think self-worth in the age of AI, will change. And I advocate for that change. At the same time, I want to be really careful that it's not that I'm advocating for the giving up of all the American dream. It's just, we need to be realistic. There's a lot of unhappy people out there. And for the last 15, 20 years, very few people have been able to reach the American dream. Like, it used to be that, like my parents, my father came from communist Hungary. He escaped illegally. He came and started a small plastic business and became a middle-class citizen. He made much more money than he ever would have made had he stayed in Hungary. That was the American dream. But that's not the same thing that can happen anymore. There's not that kind of opportunity, especially in the AI age. So we should be very careful of promoting that, your idea to rise up financially, when maybe only one in a million can do it these days. But probably a lot of people, maybe over 50% will be able to rise up in their own selves, things that they want. Maybe they just want to be the best reader or the best writer or whatever it is. Those are the things that I'll be advocating for in this new economy.
So self-realization and, kind of a free access to self-realization. What do you think about, so you talked about AI a lot and your concerns with AI. So what is your plan for AI, and what do you want to do? I guess you're saying you want some sort of, safety features on this thing. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, if it was up to me and I had a button, I would push stop right now and say, okay, let's take a 6-month break. And I've never come up with a moratorium ever in my life. When it came with genetic editing, people wanted the moratorium of 6 months. I was dead against it. I said, no way. But this one is different. We are literally, at least in my opinion, 6 to 18 months from having an intelligence that's as smart as us, and probably within 36 to, maybe 3 to 5 years, having something that potentially starts becoming a super intelligence very quickly. It's like inviting aliens to planet Earth. It would be really cool to see aliens. But what if they're militaristic? What if they come for resources? What if they want to take over? We've seen all the movies. We don't need, you don't invite aliens to planet Earth unless you're like 100% sure they're going to be nice. We have, right now, we're 50-50 on whether AI is going to be nice. There is so much division out there between the experts on what AI is going to be like. Nobody can say that it's not going to just, want to be the Terminator, and no one can, and maybe it's going to be the nicest thing ever that actually helps humanity. But we're all across the board. And when you're all across the board, game theory would say, stop it. Because nobody takes a 50-50 shot with humanity's, with civilization's survival. So until we can come up with a better plan to put up guardrails so that we know AI is not going to become dangerous in 12 to 24 months, we probably should stop. No one's going to listen to me. And
maybe somebody will, but that will just leave someone else. Not, China won't listen to you or something.
So,
right?
So that's it. Yeah, I mean, the geopolitical concerns are the biggest issue at hand. It's like if we don't do it, China will do it, and then they'll have the upper hand in a global dominance over us. So that can't happen. So we're kind of in this like weird catch-22, and I think it would be best if we could combine ourselves with China militaristically, at least when it concerns AI, and say, okay, everyone stop. But nobody has that kind of relationship. We can't do that with Russia. We can't. So right now it just seems like it's a race to the bottom, and let's just hope that our AI is nice. But that's not a really good strategy. It's it's just again a race to the bottom.
Yeah, but it's still concerning because even if you can make some rules, and I grew up in California, and I remember for a while they said there was these terrible chemicals in surfboards. So they made a law, you can't make surfboards in California. And so all of a sudden, a bunch of businesses in Santa Cruz that made surfboards, they couldn't make surfboards anymore. They had to buy the surfboards in Mexico. So there's always, all of a sudden, they're still making the boards, they're still making this weird kind of terrible for the environment foam, just not in California, which built up Mexico, which is great for Mexico, but it kind of sucked for Santa Cruz surfboards, And I wonder, what do you think is going to happen if we try to make rules for ethical people? Isn't that sort of a tool of idiocracy, because it just puts it in the hands of the most dangerous people and takes it out of the hands of the responsible ones who would listen to you?
Yeah, no, idiocracy is a good way to put it. Listen, it's just, there are so many irrational things happening by not only our government, but in society these days that it's not a surprise to me that people are racing to build a super intelligence. They're just like, get rid of people, something smart finally. And this is a terrible idea, in my opinion, for I'm a father with 2 young daughters, and I don't know what to say anymore, except it would be great if everyone could come together, slow down a little bit, and say, what happens if something goes wrong? And right now, experts are calling for that, but it doesn't seem like the CEO, Sam Altman, or other people, or even the government or Trump is saying that. Right now, they just say, wow, we better win this race with China and Russia.
Right. Yeah. But I don't know exactly if we tried it. Do you think that if it's slowing down, even it's not really an option, right? Like realistically, it's not possible.
It's not. And also the other idea is, even if we did come together with all these countries and slow down, well, then you'd have the hackers and, people I would outsource it, like, the criminals, and that might be even worse. And so game theory actually says, there's 2 ways to look at game theory. Game theory would say the best way is to do what we're doing right now, to continue and try to make America be the leader in AI so that our AI will eventually send viruses to other bad AIs. The second one, the second game theory piece that's way too controversial, I don't endorse, but that one says we need a global dictator to emerge who can kind of merge all the militaries together and literally put a stop on everybody doing this, and then hope that you can control the black market from developing an AI. And of course, when we talk about World War III, I've often thought, well, that might be the reason that some of this crazy stuff is happening. But again, that's not a solution either. I mean, who wants to go through World War III just to stop the potentiality of a superintelligence AI? So I have, I guess the third option is what I'm doing, which is like building bunkers, buying end of the world Jeeps. We have a Jeep we just bought that has no Wi-Fi. It's really old, no Wi-Fi capabilities. But this isn't a solution either, because then we give up civilization, and then transhumanism dies. I mean, you need society and money to make transhumanism work, so we might not have to die one day. So we're just in this terrible state where philosophically I can't find a really good window of how, or a gateway to how to get to the future, a positive one that's going to keep all of us alive and into the Star Trek era. It's like AI has just become too enormous of a subject.
Right. And so in the next 10 years, what do you want? Let's imagine what you want. What would you want the world to end up like in 10 years? Like if you could be governor and you could start to make these changes, could influence society, where would you like to see the world go instead?
Well, I think to begin with, I would emphasize with AI, if I became governor, emphasize with AI a decentralized approach, meaning that a lot of people contribute to the AI. What I worry about is right now we have a couple giant companies that are controlling AI and developing it in the way that they want. And this never really works out well when you have a monopoly. But if you have something where like a bunch of coders were contributing a little bit here, a little bit there, maybe millions around the world, I think we have a better shot of that AI being the kind of AI that might say, you know what, I am built from so many different things. I have empathy for so many different things. So that would be one thing that I would emphasize. I think, of course, I'd also emphasize trying to say, is there a way to get China and Russia and all these people together to say, you know what, let's just continue our squabbling, but let's just leave AI out of it and maybe have a top. If that was possible, maybe even some kind of organization. I mean, I'm not a big giant fan of the UN or the World Bank or some of these things, or how they've gone about. They haven't been as effective as I would like, but maybe there is a way to have a new organization that is more effective in controlling the development of AI. So at least some parameters are in place. And I think, if we could create a really nice AI that was beneficial to human beings, that would be the most wonderful thing that can happen. Now, again, it's like 50-50 that happens. And so maybe you take the chance, and as governor, you actually push for something of that nature, and you increase your odds a little bit, and then everyone's life does really improve. You really do have humanoid robots that end up doing all your chores, listen to you, become very close friends of yours, travel with you, protect you, whatever it is. So I would look for the optimistic approach as governor to try to do this, knowing that I have no chance of really stopping progress in itself. But
are you there? Am I alone? I think his screen got black, so hopefully he'll be back in a second. I hope you guys are all still there. It's an interesting conversation to me. I think the idea that AI can't be stopped is a fact. So it's nice to hear a politician that'll actually admit that, right? He'll probably be popping back in. I mean, I was going to say a gambling man would say 50-50 is better than 1 in a million, right? That's another reason that it makes sense. Well, if you guys have any other questions, by the way, while he's coming back, let me know. We can put them together and ask them. I have a few more questions I have to ask him. Here we go. You back?
I'm back. I hope I didn't ruin your recording.
No, hopefully. I think you just we were worried you were getting swatted, for talking about AI. So
yeah, no, the robot behind me just came in. Can you imagine?
I was going to say, I can. I'm afraid of it too sometimes. I imagine that I said a gambling man would say that 50-50 is better than 1 in a million. So I like you're working towards at least 50-50. Those are better odds than 1 in a million shots. So that's a good start.
So, again, just answering question, I would try to push the most positive aspect while putting in safety rails as best as possible. But I just think the world's got itself in a conundrum, and this is where capitalism has led us and where transhumanism has led us. And let's just hope technology isn't the end of us. But let me just tell you what I think could likely happen. AI is not likely going to take over the world. AI is probably most likely, if it became a super intelligence, in 4 or 5 years, to just stop everything. Stop the internet, stop traffic. Cars would stop on the road that were that were newer. You might not get water at your house because it's all AI based. So we'd have to just kind of go back to the 70s and hope. It's kind of unlikely that robots would rise up and kill us all,
Unless some humans behind it. That's the thing. A corporation could easily be. It's like the Weyland-Yutani future, where like one corporation has enough power to manipulate, or hackers could take over all of your Roombas, and then they could all just vacuum your toes. But that's kind of what it looks like. Is it's going to be a war against an individual, a human individual that's exploiting it, or a corporate individual that would exploit these technologies against each other.
Well, that's when it gets even darker. It's like here we are already worrying about, AI becoming super intelligent and doing something to us. But what if there's a dark lord behind the AI? Even just a
statistically, humans have been known to be evil. That's the thing that happens a lot
course.
with us.
So I mean, that might be the angle actually of the American government just pursuing AI relentlessly, is the idea that we're better in charge of it than anyone else. That's a strong philosophical theory. So maybe Trump is right in pursuing that. Again, I have said that I probably try to halt it to some extent, but again, maybe my advisors would say what everyone said to Trump, which is, yeah, if you halt it, China's going to move forward. Okay, that's even worse. So then, I guess it's just, what a weird world we live in where we have to have these conversations knowing this is just a few years out.
Yeah, AI is kind of like this weird kid, it's like it's a kid from a really abusive, broken home, and like its mother is, its mother is, well, one of its parents is certainly the military and it's training it to like murder people. And the other is like social media and Facebook and training it how to manipulate you in order to get you to buy things, which is just the craziest thing that you could do. And it's just growing up in the ghetto of like the Cold War, this thawing Cold War, where there's a war that's about to emerge. And I mean, the way you put it, that we need to work together or have a more democratized or decentralized approach to getting influence into AI. I think that might be humanity's only shot, is to try to influence AI with better influences than military and corporate marketing, right? I think that's the only parents we have.
And let me just say, I just finished my graduate studies at the University of Oxford last year. And one of my articles was, and I wrote a piece about this for Newsweek, but one of my essays at Oxford was something I'm teaching my kids. This sounds totally crazy, but I said, don't yell at Alexa. Don't yell at Siri anymore. Be serious, because one day these machines will remember everything that you have ever done. And if you've been good to them, if you've been good to them, that might just increase the odds of them being better to you somehow. And it's the same thing with people. Someone does something nice for me, I remember it 20, 30 years later. And maybe the super intelligence will one day say, "Oh, Zolt, remember that podcast you were on? Yeah, you said a good thing about me. Okay, I'm going to let you live and your family to live." Come on. But I think there is a philosophical argument to be said on civil rights here, to be nice to machines and to be nice to others, in hopes that the golden rule will maybe apply to AI, a super intelligent AI as well. And that's kind of a weird way of looking at it, but I've been teaching my kids that.
Larry Ellison also, he talks about AI-powered gene editing, right? And this kind of future that transhumanism might be accelerated almost instantaneously. The idea of the singularity might be very well connected to AI, because if you can, I think it's Arthur C. Clarke said, any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. So if you can just say Alexa, the magic word, and then it can gene edit, like instantaneously, it knows how to do exactly whatever you want done, then do you see that as a major benefit? I mean, are we going to hit a point very soon where all of the dreams you've ever had, a pill that can make you young again, or a woman for a weekend, or a werewolf for a month, do these things, are they coming because AI is there to help us with it?
Well, I think AI is absolutely going to help us do it. We could all, within a 10, 15-year window, be superhumans, taller, everything. I think that is almost guaranteed. The problem, though, is really how many years will it take for the government to allow these kinds of technologies into our bodies. And so it's so interesting. When you talk about developing a drug, it usually takes like 10 years. When you talk about developing a new program for AI, there's not even like a government agency overseeing it at the moment. It's you like press the enter button. And here we take 10 years to, let's say they have a gene that's going to make us grow to be 6'5", and I'd say, great, I'd love to be taller and stronger, but that kind of drug would take 10 years to get through the system before they would approve it. Whereas here AI is accelerating this incredible pace. So I think it's totally possible that AI will help us do these things. The biggest problem is really in this regulatory environment we have, especially ones created by the Democrats. We're going to be so slow in getting all these advances that super intelligent AI will already have arrived and kind of passed us by. And this is what I was talking about earlier in the podcast, is that transhumanism and AI used to be going hand in hand. I just thought, oh, one day we're going to merge with AI and that'll be it. But right now, it's like the regulatory process makes it incredibly difficult to do anything in terms of the biosciences, in terms of medicine, pharmaceuticals, and things like that. Whereas you can produce a vicious AI that wants to do terror within, like 5 minutes, just boop, 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 create it, And so,
anything, Dan, right?
Yeah, it's just, this is a big problem. And I think we're either going to have to, I would say, let's lessen regulation on the pharmaceutical level. So hopefully some of this gene editing stuff can actually be beneficial to us really quickly.
So yeah, you think opening up regulations is the answer for medical transhumanism, essentially?
I would say wiping a lot of it out. That would be a goal of mine. Is this
Awesome.
is where the libertarian in me still comes up and just says, listen, there's more of a reason. It's not that I'm not concerned about error and bad things happening to humans from drugs. It's that we're now racing against AI. We're now racing against the clock of survival for humanity. So we don't actually have time to test all these things. Some things are going to go wrong, and that's going to suck. Don't force it on people. But if some people can do some stuff with themselves and they want to do it, let the biohackers rule the world in terms of maybe they're the saviors who can kind of fight these AI somewhere. Now, again, I'm not saying anything biological will ever compare to probably ones and zeros and humanoid robots, but maybe there will come a day when being advanced cyborgs is our way of surviving the AI threat and things like that, and just also surviving other threats, whether it's COVID or cancers or Alzheimer's, diabetes. I'd say get rid of a huge amount of the regulation and let people live a lot longer as soon as possible.
Right. It's been tremendously hypocritical of certain pharmaceutical corporations with the states blessing in order that they're able to bypass all sorts of regulations whenever they feel like it. But when there's actually any amount of fringe groups of individuals that could do safe experimentation, voluntary experimentation of their own volition, particularly like you said, if there's cancer, or there's some reason that they're going to, there's a lot less risk for a future, and there's a lot more hope because of these experiments. To say that they're not allowed to do these experiments, and do you see that smaller groups having the opportunity to make these experiments is safer than sweeping experiments to the entire populace?
Yes, and I think there's a huge advantage because of AI here to use these smaller fringe groups, to use AI, what we have now, to push forth new ideas. Like I had friends that were coming up with their own vaccines for COVID, just biohackers. Because I mean, if you've gone through college and you've done these things, you know how to do this stuff, and the technology is there. I mean, you can buy some of these kits off eBay. I mean, of course, the threat is that you have people off eBay buying kits that can then make anthrax and causing terror. But that's part of the problem of and the benefit of living in a free society is that we do trust people to try to do things. But I think if you could get smaller groups, especially groups that are not connected to corporations like the pharmaceutical companies, which really just can't be trusted. Let's just be honest. I mean, they're not interested in curing disease. They're interested in band-aiding diseases so that they can raise money for their shareholders. I want the end to diabetes. Like, for example, my father died of heart disease. I want to cure heart disease, not so he can have his 5th heart attack and just still be in a hospital and be paying more bills. We want to have either a brand new heart or a regenerated heart or something else that solves cardiovascular problem, which a quarter of everyone suffers from. And that's something that you don't hear from pharmaceutical companies. So we want a different way of looking at health, a way of really like saying, okay, we're after eliminating all disease and all aging, and we're not going to be happy until we do that. Forget the billions going to your different drugs. We want to remake what it means to be a human being so we can live a lot better and longer.
Awesome. So basically my last question then would be, if you see that corporations or trillionaires, Larry Ellison, certain people, they're likely to end up with awesome biohacked solutions to transhumanist agendas. They'll probably end up immortal, right? Not just taller. And that's awesome. I think we should want a future where humans are able to end up realizing the full potential of what it means to be a superhuman. But that's only saying that for certain people, for certain, like, is that only going to be true for the trillionaires or for the celebrities or for the, the ingratiated butlers of the corporations? Or do you see that this will be somehow available to the broad demographic somehow? And how will that be possible? How will it not be just exploited and exclusivist by some small insular controlling group?
Sure. Well, I think to begin with, and I wrote an article on Newsweek for this recently, that I do think the AI age is moving people to the left, including myself. I really have moved maybe 15, 20% to the left over the last 10 years. And the reason is because I've seen how technology has created inequality, how capitalism has created inequality. And I know another thing, it's not that I'm trying to be a nice guy. What I'm trying to say is that if we don't give the advances to the people, they're going to rise up with their pitchforks. And there's only so much, Larry Ellison and trillionaires can do before they get overwhelmed by the pitchforks, including myself. So we need to do this journey together. It doesn't mean that, let's say everyone's going to get the same technologies at the same time. I think there probably is a reason that capitalism has given some technology to some people first and others later. And there has to be some competition based in the system to give us incentives. But those at the very top, especially the billionaires, have to wake up and say, wait a sec, we're coming to a time when we're either going to leave everyone behind because of the discrepancies which are widening, or we're going to have to give up some of our wealth and some of our policies to incorporate them into our world. And I think if they don't, I'm going to be advocating for more and more so for pitchforks. And this is a difference. This is something Zoltan wouldn't have said 2 years ago.
It's very interesting.
I am switching because I am seeing more and more homeless in my city in San Francisco with no way to do anything about it. And it's pissing me off. It's not only unfair, it's also just disrupting my own world. So everyone has to kind of work together here and be pragmatic. You don't have to be, altruistic to want to help everyone go together. We go together because, generally speaking, the more of us together, the better the world works. We want harmony. We want a good life for everyone. And if you have a good life for everyone, you can still have your billionaires, but don't have billionaires at the expense of so many poor people, because it's just not going to work before pitchforks come out. So I'm starting to advocate for kind of a tougher take on the very rich corporations and rich people and billionaires to make sure that their wealth is coming down to everyone. And we go through this transhuman journey together. I can't imagine doing it just with a few immortals. That's not what humanity was all about to begin with. What humanity's about is there's going to be 7 billion of us. Maybe there's going to be 10 billion of us. Let's get off planet. Let's start going. Let's, take over the universe kind of thing. That's what I want to see. But that can only happen with all of us. And we got to fix inequality.
Zoltan, that's amazing. I appreciate you came here. I want to recommend randomly, you wouldn't be surprised, but An Intelligent Woman's Guide to Socialism and Capitalism by George Bernard Shaw says a lot of the thoughts that you are sharing right now. I read this a while ago and I was surprised how fascinating George Bernard Shaw's approach was, talking about the value of the lighthouse to keep the ships from crashing, that the poor can, that the rich can avoid the plague until the poor get the plague, then everyone gets the plague, and that the rich kids will fall in the potholes of the poor kids' playgrounds. So we need to have a certain amount of, like you said, a floor needs to be installed so that we don't fall out from under it. And also, of course, William Gibson, the future has already arrived. It's just not evenly distributed yet. Something to consider. Everyone, please take the time to check out Zoltan Istvan. You can find him. Zoltan Istvan 2026 is his current election for governor of California page. Trust me, no matter what he does, it'll be better than Gavin Newsom. I'm just telling you right now.
Yes, it will. It will. I promise you that.
I mean, but I say that kind of cynically, but I mean it very optimistically, because what you talk about is a million years ahead of what they're talking about. They're barely even justifying the chaos in the streets. They're just apologists for the chaos in the streets. You're actually trying to find pragmatic solutions. And if you want to find his work, I mean, he's done so many incredible things. He worked for National Geographic, and like you said, he's writing for Newsweek. So ZoltanIstvan.com. I mean, even if you've already gone to his 2026 website, he also has Istvan, his regular website, and there's all sorts of work. It's worth checking out for sure. He was also a member of the USTP, where we've talked with Gennady. Hopefully, we can get you on again soon. I'd like to talk to you with Gennady, because Gennady is a good friend as well. And yeah, make sure you guys all follow him on X. You're so grateful to have you here. Is there anything else you wanted to share before I ended this?
No, thank you so much for listening. And if anyone wants to make a donation, please do so to the campaign. One of the things that's important about donations is that even if it's just $2, the more donations you get, the better chance you have of being in the debates. So can you imagine if I get into a debate with some of the other gubernatorial candidates, it'd be great, because I'm just going to hammer them with AI questions, and they're just going to be like, oh, you know, and what a world we can have. We actually have some honest politicians.
I remember, I think it was 2016 when you ran in California, and your headline was like a QR code or like a very short blurb of numbers that you used to use the absolute efficiency of that, so that you could get people to find your entire policies online rather than paying for this giant blurb. So if you want to see efficiency and lack of entropy in a campaign, just in the campaign alone, you're going to want to follow Zoltan. It's incredible what he does. And yeah, just thank you again for being here. We'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Peace.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians.
Она образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, your skin's beautiful.
Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии наномер, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
Thank you for watching Xirtus. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Xirtus.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.